Hello, today we're going to be cooking food from the Southwest region. And just as a reminder, in this region, you have a couple different options for what you actually want to make. You can make the stuffed poblano peppers, the cheese crisp, or the Arroz con leche with strawberry sauce, which is traditional rice pudding from Spain. And that is what I'm going to actually be making for you today. So before we dive in to that, I have a little clip for a little bit of history about Arroz con leche. So let's take a look.
Arroz con leche is a folk song from Puerto Rico. What is arroz con leche? It is a pudding or soup made with rice and milk. It is usually for children or for when someone has an upset stomach. In other countries, arroz con leche is more of a dessert with sugar and cinnamon added to it.
All right. So with that being said, I am going to show you how to make arroz con leche. So this was invented from Muslim origin, and it really goes back to Spain. So this is one of the most popular desserts in Spain. And if you've never had it before, it is very similar to American rice pudding, but it has more of a cinnamon flavor. And then we doctor it up and make it even better than American rice pudding by adding a tangy strawberry sauce and candied pecans. So I'm going to show you how to make all three of them. If you choose to make this and you can't make the strawberry sauce or the pecans, you just want to make the rice pudding, totally fine. Whatever works for you. We want it. Obviously, we want you to enjoy it, but it's really, really good with the strawberry and the pecans. So let's get started. So I'm just going to move on over to my range. All right. So hopefully you can see that. All right. So in my first pan, I am going to start cooking my rice. So within there, I have combined 3 1/4 cup of whole milk. All right. So I'm going to start simmering that. I know it's hard to see, but I'm going to start simmering that up. And to that, I am going to add a cinnamon stick. Now you can get cinnamon sticks pretty much anywhere. This I just got from a Mexican grocery store, and they were really cheap for 3 of them. This was $1. So that is amazing, because if you go to like Mariano's or Jewel, you have to get it in like a jar, and they're really expensive. So this is a steal, and it's the same exact thing. So the recipe calls for 1 whole cinnamon stick, and I'm literally just going to put this whole thing in there. So what we're doing is we're steeping the flavor out of that cinnamon stick to flavor our milk. All right. So it says to heat milk and cinnamon until it reaches a boil. So I'm going to kind of let that do its thing. In the meantime, I'm going to switch this over here so I can start making our strawberry sauce. All right. So in here, what I'm going to combine is 2.5 cups of strawberries. So right now, when I'm making this demo, it is winter, right? And it is not strawberry season. So the recipe calls for 2.5 cups of fresh strawberries. I'm actually going to be adding frozen. All right. It is just fine. They're starting to defrost, but 2.5 cups of them, which is equivalent to about 16 ounces. All right, so I'm going to have that right into there. And then to that, I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of granulated sugar. Let me turn my heat down. So that's going to add a little bit of sweetness. It's also going to start making those strawberries juicy. So I'm just going to start kind of moving these around. You can already see some of the juices coming out. All right. So to that, I am also going to add in lemon juice and then a little bit of lemon peel. All right, just a little bit of zest. All right. And I'm just going to start kind of melting down my strawberries. And then the last thing I'm going to add in is a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. All right. If you don't want to add the zest, you don't have to. It's just going to make it a little bit more tangy. All right. So what's making this strawberry sauce really complement the rice pudding so nicely is the cinnamon. All right. So I'm just going to let this kind of do its thing. All right. So as you can just see that, I'll be right back. Right. So in the meantime, as that's doing its thing, you can see over here that the milk is also starting to get heated. All right. So I'm doing that. I'm doing this. So I'm multitasking at its finest. Okay. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to candy some pecans. I'm going to let the milk keep heating. All right, I'm going to let the strawberries keep heating as well. I'm going to switch this off here and I candy my pecans. So for my candied pecans, before I do anything, I need to make sure I have a pan ready to go. All right, because as soon as my pecans have been candied, I need to pour them out to let them cool right away. All right, so to this, I'm going to be adding a 1/2 cup of pecans. So I just have chopped pecans. You can buy whole pecans, and that would be fine. And then chop them up, but you do want them chopped. All right. So I'm going to start heating them first, just to get that nice and warm. All right. Just going to stir up my strawberries a little bit. And the strawberries are going to cook for about 10 minutes. So the point of them, you can kind of see, is I want them to get thick. So see how they're nice and juicy? So we want them to get thick. How you get them thick is by cooking them and getting rid of the moisture. I just checked on my milk. It is not boiling yet. As soon as it starts boiling, then we can add in our rice. But we cannot start adding that in until it is boiling. All right, so I heated up my pan a little bit, cooking up those pecans. And for those, I'm actually going to use tongs. All right. And to that, I am going to add in my sugar. So I'm adding 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. So when you first add that in, not a whole lot's going to happen because we have to wait for it to melt. So when this is happening, you have to watch it. You really got to watch it because it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's not cooking, it's not cooking, it's not cooking. And then it starts, sugar starts to melt and then it cooks. And if you're not watching it, it will burn. So just keep stirring it up. Pans get hot spots. So you can kind of see right here, it's starting to melt a little bit. Looks like water. It starts getting real clumpy. So this is giving our rice pudding, our Arroz con leche, a little bit of sweetness and crunch. So we have the creamy pudding. Then we'll have the nice tangy, fruity strawberry. And then we'll top it off with this sugary pecans, candied pecans. And it's crunchy because of the sugar. So you can see it's happening. Do not scorch your heat or else it's just going to burn and you're going to end up having to throw it away and start over. And the pecans are not cheap. So as I said at the beginning, you only have to, you're only required to make 1 lab. So if you're more of a sweet person, this is the lab for you. If you are more of a savory person, the stuffed poblanos or the cheese crisp is for you. If you're going to be making this at school, pretty much Monday, Tuesday is going to be your day to prep. And then Thursday or Friday, whatever day you are in school, is going to be your day to finish it up. All right. If you are someone that works very fast, you can do more than one recipe, but we've asked you in advance. So this recipe will take a long time. So if you are planning to do the rice pudding, this is probably the only one you're going to have time for, just because it's a 3-parter. All right, so you can see I keep moving it, and almost all of that sugar is melted. I still have some white chunks. We don't want that. All right, and almost done. We don't want it to burn, so I just turn my heat down just a little bit. All right, and there we go. So it is all melted. I'm going to take that off the heat. You don't want to leave it in the pan because the pan is still hot and it will keep cooking. So I'm just going to take this and put it into my baking sheet. And this is done, but we want to let it cool. All right, so I'm just going to flatten this, separate them up a little bit, and let that cool. All right, so I'm just going to take this and put this off to the side to let this cool. And then take a look at our milk is not boiling yet. So we're going to keep going with our strawberry sauce. All right. So I'm going to keep stirring this up just like so. We want it to get thick. So our milk, it takes a little bit longer for milk to start boiling just because of all the dairy. So it's almost there. Once it gets there, we'll add in our milk. So we're going to be adding long grain rice to our milk mixture. All right. And it takes a long time to cook. It will take about 15 to 20 minutes once this is boiling for it to simmer with this. This will plump up and it creates a nice creamy texture. At that point, we'll take it off the heat and then we're going to add in 7 ounces of sweetened condensed milk. All right. We will be taking a break so you can kind of, you don't have to watch it just cook. But I wanted to give you a general idea. Once it's boiling, I'm going to show you what that looks like. And then I'll put that in there. I'll put the lid on because you want the moisture to plump up that rice. And then we'll come back and I'll show you what it all looks like when it's done. But before I do that, so here's my strawberries. And it smells amazing. Nice and fruity, has cinnamon undertones. You can see it's starting to get a little bit thicker, coats the spoon. All right. So that, and it's going to thicken as it cools too. So this has been cooking for probably about 5 to 6 minutes, and it's getting nice and thick. You don't want it too thick because it will turn into a jam. You want it to be a nice, just thick sauce. All right. And there is my rice creamy milk mixture. It's getting ready. It's almost boiling. All right. And this is, I'm going to turn this down a little bit. All right, so this is done. All right, it's nice and thick. We don't want it too soupy, but we also don't want it too thick. So I'm going to let this cool off to the side. I'm going to switch over to our rice mixture. All right, switch that over so you can see it. And it is pretty much almost at, you can see the simmer. So simmer is the tiny little bubbles. We'll let it do its thing there. And then extracting with, so milk, because this is whole milk, so it has all the fat, and that's what's going to make it nice and creamy. It has a skin on the top, so you want to make sure you get rid of that. Okay, so it's nice and foamy. So I am going to add in our long grain rice, not minute rice, long grain, just regular rice, half cup. You're probably like, that's a lot of liquid to rice. It is, but the milk is going to get thick and the rice is going to plump up and we're going to evaporate out all the moisture. All right, so we are going to let this cook in here I'm going to turn it down to a medium heat. And then I'm going to let this cook for about 15 minutes with the lid on. So I will be back to show you what that looks like when it's done and when we add in our sweet condensed milk. And I'll show you the finished cooled strawberry sauce and we'll assemble. All right, so we'll be right back. So we are back to Arroz con Leche, and I'm going to show you what my rice looks like. So I've let this cook for about 15 minutes. And as I told you, as it cooks, you leave the lid on. So it was the 3 1/4 cup of whole milk. It was one rod of cinnamon, and then a 1/2 cup of milk or a 1/2 cup of rice, long grain rice. And you can see that the moisture is going away, plumping up our rice. So at this point, we are going to add 7 ounces of sweetened condensed milk. And it can be any brand you want. I just have Carnation, but it literally can be any brand. And we're going to add that. Right. So this is the sweetness. Because if you remember, we didn't add any sugar to this. So this is nice, yummy, sweet milk, like candy, right? I'm going to add that to this. This is going to help thicken it up, and it's going to add our sweetness. All right, so at this point, we are now going to continue cooking this on low heat with the cinnamon sticks still in there for 15 more minutes. All right, I'm just stirring it up. Keep an eye on it because sometimes with all that milk in there, if your heat is too high, it will spill over onto your range. You don't want that to happen because it's a nightmare to clean. All right, so I'm going to keep the lid on. I have it at 2 on my gas range at home, so I'll be right back in 15 minutes. Hello, and we are back to the Southwest region, and I'm going to be showing you the finished rice pudding, arroz con leche, and how to assemble. All right, so we made 3 different dishes. First off, we made the strawberry sauce. All right, and I left that chunky because we want that for texture, the tangy strawberry sauce. And then we have our crunchy candied pecans that we put in a pan with sugar and just candied them. So that's our crunchy aspect. And then we have our soft aspect, which is our rice pudding. All right. So this took a good amount of time. All right. So just as a reminder, we started boiling 3 1/4 cup of whole milk. And then we added a cinnamon, okay, a stick of cinnamon, which you can see it got very large. And we steeped it, and we brought that milk to a boil, and then we added in a 1/2 cup of our long grain rice. All right, we let it cook for about 20 minutes, and that moisture started to evaporate. Then, and it started to thicken. Then we added in 7 ounces of sweetened condensed milk for sweetness and also help get thick. And we let it cook for about another 20 minutes until the mixture thickened even more. And now we have our rice pudding. All right. Technically, I would say you should let this cool before you assemble, but I want to show you some ideas for assembling. So I just have a nice parfait glass. So what I'm going to do is you would remove your cinnamon stick. All right. So I'm just going to remove that. All right. And it has that nice cinnamon aftertone to this. So this is, we're going to put our rice pudding in the bottom. So to do that, I'm just going to get a portion cup. So I'm actually going to use a 1/2 cup. All right, so I'm just going to take that and just pour it into the bottom of my cup, like so. I got a little rice on the outside. Remember, we want to focus on presentation. All right. Again, and yours will probably, as you let it cool, it thickens a little bit more. So I'm doing about a cup in the bottom. All right. So it's nice and creamy. All right. And then I'm going to take my strawberry sauce. We want it nice and chunky. All right. It's our tangy. I left that lemon rind in there. It's just a little for the zesty flavor. All right, just like so. And then if you want, you can put some whipped cream on it. You probably don't want to just because you have the creaminess from the rice. But if you want to, presentation, it will look nice. And then I'm just going to take up some of my pecans and put that right in the top for my nice crunchy almond. And then bon appetit. Enjoy your arroz con leches. If this is the recipe you choose to do, make sure you take a picture and submit. Thank you so much. Enjoy.